I should have walked away the moment I saw him. The charity gala was winding down, champagne flutes abandoned on marble tables, designer gowns swishing through the gilded ballroom of the Rothschild Hotel. I stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights blur through the rain-streaked glass, wondering why I'd let my boss convince me to attend this pretentious fundraiser in the first place. "You need to network, Sloan," he'd said. "You're brilliant with data analytics, but you're invisible. Change that." So here I was, invisible as ever, clutching a glass of sparkling water and counting the minutes until I could escape back to my apartment and my spreadsheets the only language I truly understood. That's when I heard the gunshot. No, not a gunshot, a champagne cork. But the sound made the man across the room turn sharply, and for one heartbeat, his hand moved to his hip in a motion so practiced, so instinctive, that ice flooded my veins. He was dangerous. I knew it, the way prey knows a predator, some ancient part of my brain screaming at me to run. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because he was looking directly at me now, and the weight of his gaze was a physical thing, pinning me in place like a butterfly on display. Dante Volkov. I didn't know his name then, but I knew his face. Everyone did, even if they pretended not to. He owned half the city's real estate, funded political campaigns, and had connections that stretched from Wall Street to the shadowed corners where law and order went to die. The rumors whispered he was more than a businessman, that his empire was built on blood and fear. He moved toward me with the fluid grace of a panther, parting the crowd without a word. People stepped aside instinctively, their conversations faltering as he passed. He wore a black suit tailored so perfectly it looked like violence wrapped in silk. His dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles, and controlled power. My heart hammered against my ribs. "You've been watching me." His voice was low, accented with something Eastern European, each syllable deliberate and absolute. I know, I wasn't. The lie died on my tongue when his eyes, storm gray and utterly devoid of warmth, locked onto mine. "Don't." One word, a command that made my spine straighten reflexively. "I noticed liars. You were watching." "Everyone watches you," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "You make sure of it." Something flickered in his expression, amusement, maybe, or curiosity. He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker, something that reminded me of gunpowder and night air. "And what do you see when you watch me, little analyst?" My blood ran cold. "How do you know what I do?" "I know everything that happens in my city." He lifted one hand, and a man appeared at his elbow, immediately broad-shouldered, scarred, utterly lethal. Victor. Checked the guest list the moment I decided to attend. Sloan Mercer, 28, data analyst for Castellan Financial, graduate degree in forensic accounting, no family, lives alone in a studio apartment in the warehouse district. Unremarkable. The word stung more than it should have. Then why are you talking to me? I forced myself to meet his gaze, to not flinch under the weight of his attention. He studied me for a long moment, his head tilted slightly, like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "Because you're the only person in this room who looked at me with fear instead of greed. That makes you interesting. Or smart," I whispered. His lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. Devastating. Perhaps both. He should have walked away then. I should have excused myself, disappeared into the crowd, gone home and forgotten this encounter ever happened. But something kept me rooted to the spot. Something in the way he looked at me like I was real, visible, when I'd spent my entire life being overlooked. "Your business partner?" I heard myself say. "Mikhail Sokolov. He's stealing from you." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dante went utterly still, and I realized with dawning horror what I'd just done. Victor's hand moved inside his jacket. Around us, conversations continued, oblivious to the danger crackling through the air like static before lightning. "Explain." The single word carried the weight of a death sentence. My mouth went dry, but I couldn't stop now. I analyze financial patterns for a living. I see things in data that other people miss. Your company, Volkov Industries, was mentioned in a report I reviewed last week. The numbers didn't make sense. There were discrepancies in the offshore accounts linked to your import operations. Small ones, carefully hidden, but consistent. Someone with access to your systems has been siphoning funds for at least 6 months. "And you're telling me this why?" His voice had gone soft, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Because," I faltered, searching for an answer that wouldn't get me killed. Because you deserve to know when someone is betraying you. People betray me all the time, he said quietly. I handle it. What makes you think I need some analyst playing detective with my finances? You don't, I admitted. But I couldn't. I saw the pattern, and I couldn't unsee it. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry for wasting your time. If I'm right. If you're right, he interrupted, then you've just made yourself either very valuable or very dangerous to me. Possibly both. His hand lifted, fingers brushing the underside of my jaw with shocking gentleness, tilting my face up toward the light. I should have pulled away. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but his touch was electric, sending shivers down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. What's your game, Sloane Mercer? He murmured, his thumb grazing my lower lip. No game, I breathed. I don't like watching people get hurt when I could have warned them. How noble. The mockery in his tone should have angered me, but his eyes told a different story, calculating, intense, alive with possibility. Come with me. What? No, I can't. That wasn't a request. He released me, stepping back, and I immediately felt the loss of his touch like a physical ache. Victor will bring your coat. We're going to my office, and you're going to show me exactly what you found. If you're lying, if this is some elaborate setup, I will know, and you will regret it. And if I'm telling the truth? His smile was a blade in the dark, beautiful and deadly. Then, little analyst, you've just become the most interesting person in my world, which means you're mine now, whether you realize it or not. He turned and walked toward the exit, the crowd parting before him like water. I stood frozen, heart racing, knowing with absolute certainty that my life had just changed forever. Victor appeared, at my side, holding my coat, his expression unreadable. The car is waiting, Miss Mercer. I looked toward the door where Dante had disappeared, then back at Victor. What if I refuse? Then you walk out that door and spend the rest of your very short life looking over your shoulder. His voice was almost gentle. Mr. Volkov doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive. My hands trembled as I took the coat. I had two choices. Follow a man who radiated danger like heat from a fire, or run and pray I could disappear before he decided I knew too much. I thought of my empty apartment, my predictable life, the spreadsheets that never talked back. Then I thought of the way Dante had looked at me like I mattered. I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking on marble, my heart hammering a rhythm that sounded like both terror and exhilaration. The rain was falling harder now, and a black Mercedes waited at the curb, engine purring like a predator. Dante stood beside the open door, watching me, approach through the downpour, his expression unreadable. Last chance to run, he said softly. I stepped into the car. He slid in beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body, and the door closed with a sound like a coffin sealing shut. Good girl, he murmured as the car pulled into traffic. And somewhere in the darkness of my mind, I wondered if I'd just saved my life, or ended it. The car sliced through rain-soaked streets, headlights reflecting off puddles like scattered diamonds. I sat rigid against the leather seat, hyper-aware of Dante beside me, his presence filling the confined space until I could barely breathe. He hadn't spoken since we'd left the hotel. Neither had I. Victor drove in silence, his eyes occasionally flicking to the rearview mirror, watching us with the vigilance of a guard dog. My mind raced through worst-case scenarios. What if I was wrong? What if the discrepancies I'd noticed were legitimate transactions I simply didn't understand? What if this was all some horrible mistake and I'd just accused a mafia boss's partner of theft based on incomplete data? What if I never made it home tonight? Stop thinking so loud, Dante said without looking at me. I can hear your panic from here. I'm not panicking. You're gripping the door handle hard enough to break it. He finally turned his head, and in the passing streetlights, his face was all shadows and angles. Relax, Sloane. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be gone. I'm many things, but inefficient isn't one of them. That's not as comforting as you think it is. His laugh was low and unexpected, softening the harsh lines of his face for just a moment. No, I suppose it isn't. The car turned down a private drive, and a building rose before us, glass and steel, modern and imposing, with the Volkov Industries logo illuminated at the top. The executive entrance, at midnight. Your office is open this late? I asked. My office is open whenever I want it to be. I own the building. Of course he did. Victor opened my door, and I stepped out into the rain, which had softened to a steady drizzle. Dante appeared beside me, his hand settling on the small of my back, possessive, proprietary, burning through the thin fabric of my dress. He guided me toward the entrance where 2 security guards immediately straightened, their eyes carefully avoidless as we passed. The elevator was mirrored and silent, and I watched our reflection as we ascended him, dark and commanding in his perfect suit. Me, smaller, paler, looking like I'd stumbled into the wrong fairy tale entirely. "You're staring again," he observed. "I'm trying to figure out why I'm really here. I told you. You're going to show me this supposed betrayal. You could have had Victor drag me to some warehouse and torture it out of me." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "That's what people like you do, isn't it?" The elevator doors opened directly into a penthouse office, all dark, wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city. Dante stepped out, shrugging off his jacket and draping it over a chair with casual elegance. "People like me," he repeated, rolling up his shirt sleeves to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. "You mean criminals? Monsters? Killers?" I didn't answer. He moved to a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses. "I am all those things, Sloane. But I'm also a businessman, and torture is remarkably unreliable for extracting truth. People will say anything to make pain stop." He crossed to me, pressing a glass into my hand. "Fear, however real fear mixed with opportunity that makes people honest. I'm not afraid of you." The lie tasted bitter. "Yes, you are. But you're also curious, intrigued, maybe even a little excited." His fingers brushed mine as he released the glass. "That's why you got in the car. That's why you're still standing here instead of screaming for help." He was right, and I hated that he could read me so easily. "The computer," I said, needing to focus on something concrete. Something that wasn't the way his proximity made my skin feel too tight. "I need access to your financial systems." Dante gestured to a massive desk where multiple monitors glowed in the darkness. "Everything you need." Victor disabled the security protocols. "You have 30 minutes to prove your theory. And if I can't, then you've wasted my time, and I'll have to decide what to do with you." The threat hung between us, elegant and absolute. I set down the untouched whiskey and moved to the computer, my hands shaking slightly as I navigated through his systems. The data was extensive import records, shipping manifests, payment transfers across dozens of shell corporations, legal enough on the surface, but underneath. "There," I said, pulling up a spreadsheet and highlighting a series of transactions. "These payments to this offshore account in the Caymans, they're listed as consulting fees for import logistics, but look at the timing. They coincide with your legitimate shipments, but the amounts are inconsistent with market rates. And here," I pulled up another screen. "The account is registered under a company called North Star Holdings. Untraceable, except for this." I showed him a registration document I'd found buried in public records during my original research. The listed agent for North Star Holdings shares an address with Mikhail Sokolov's mistress. Dante leaned over my shoulder, close enough that I could feel his breath against my neck. He smelled like rain and danger, and something uniquely him that made my pulse race. He was silent for a long moment, studying the screen with absolute focus. Then he straightened, pulling out his phone and typing something quickly. Within seconds, it buzzed with a response. "Victor just confirmed. Mikhail's mistress lives at that address. Has for 2 years. He set the phone down, his expression unreadable. "How long have you known this?" "I only made the connection 3 days ago. I wasn't even sure it meant anything until tonight." "And yet you told me. Why?" I turned to face him, forcing myself to meet his eyes. "Because I spent my whole life watching people get taken advantage of. My father was a small business owner. His partner embezzled everything, left us with nothing. My father had a heart attack 6 months later. I was 16. The old grief tightened my throat. I learned to read financial patterns after that, taught myself to see the lies hidden in numbers. And when I saw it happening to you, you thought you'd save me?" His voice was soft, almost tender. "How unexpectedly noble. I thought you deserved to know the truth." He studied me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression surprise. "Maybe, or the faintest hint of vulnerability. No one has tried to protect me in a very long time," he said quietly. Then his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed, the vulnerability vanishing behind a mask of cold fury. "Mikhail just texted. He wants to meet tomorrow to discuss a new shipment." Dante's smile was terrifying. "How convenient. What are you going to do?" He moved to the windows, hands in his pockets. silhouetted against the city lights. What I always do with Betrayal. Handle it, Dante. You did well tonight, Sloane. He turned back to me, and the predator was fully present now. Better than I expected. Which means I have a proposition for you. My stomach tightened. What kind of proposition? Work for me. Not in some office analyzing data for people who barely know your name. Work directly for me. Be my analyst. My eyes in the places I can't see. I'll pay you triple what you make now, and you'll have access to information most people would kill for. You're offering me a job? I couldn't hide my disbelief. Just like that? You proved your value in less than an hour. You're intelligent, observant, and apparently have some misguided sense of justice that makes you trustworthy. Those are rare qualities in my world. And if I refuse? His expression hardened. Then you walk out of here knowing far too much about my business and my enemies. That makes you a liability. I don't keep liabilities, Sloane. I eliminate them. The threat was clear, but there was something else in his eyes, a challenge, a test, maybe even hope. I need time to think, I whispered. You have until morning. Victor will take you home. Tomorrow, you'll give me your answer. He walked to his desk, dismissing me with the gesture. And Sloane, don't try to run. There's nowhere in this city I can't find you. Victor appeared in the doorway as if summoned. I grabbed my coat with trembling hands, moving toward the exit on unsteady legs. At the elevator, I turned back one last time. Dante stood at the windows, a dark king surveying his kingdom, and I realized with startling clarity that I'd just stepped into a world where there were only two options: become part of his empire, or be destroyed by it. The elevator doors closed, and I sagged against the wall, my heart racing. What had I done? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Choose wisely, little analyst. Your life depends on it. D. The car ride home passed in a blur, and when Victor dropped me at my building, I stumbled inside feeling like I'd survived a hurricane. I poured myself a glass of wine with shaking hands and stood at my own window, staring out at the city that suddenly felt so much smaller, so much more dangerous. My phone buzzed again. Another text. I'll be waiting for your answer. Don't disappoint me. I looked down at the screen, then back at the city lights, and I knew, with terrifying certainty, that I'd already made my choice the moment I stepped into that car. I just had to find the courage to admit it. I didn't sleep. How could I, when every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dante's face, those storm-gray eyes that seemed to see straight through me. The dangerous curve of his mouth when he smiled, the barely leashed violence in the way he moved. By 5 a.m., I'd drunk too much coffee and analyzed my situation from every possible angle. The spreadsheets on my laptop mocked me with their orderly columns and predictable formulas. My old life, contained in neat rows and calculated risks. Dante's offer was chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos. I could refuse, pack a bag, drain my savings account, disappear to another city and hope he'd find me too insignificant to pursue. But Victor's words echoed in my mind. There's nowhere in this city I can't find you. And beneath the fear, something else whispered. Do you really want to run? My phone buzzed at exactly 7 a.m. The car will arrive at 8. Be ready. D. No question mark. No room for negotiation. Just absolute certainty that I would comply. I showered, changed into a charcoal pencil skirt and silk blouse armor disguised as professional attire, and was waiting on the curb when the black Mercedes pulled up precisely at 8. Victor opened the door without speaking, his expression unreadable behind dark sunglasses. Where are we going? I asked as I slid into the back seat. Mr. Volkov is at the estate. He's expecting you. The estate. Of course he had an estate. We drove out of the city, through gates that opened automatically, down a tree-lined drive that seemed to go on forever. The house that emerged from the morning mist was something from another era, stone and iron, beautiful and imposing, surrounded by gardens that looked like they required a full staff to maintain. Dante waited on the front steps, dressed casually in dark jeans and a black shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking somehow more dangerous in daylight than he had in the shadowed elegance of his office. You came? He said as I approached, something like satisfaction crossing his face. Did I have a choice? There's always a choice. Sloane. You could have run. Some people would have. He gestured toward the house. The fact that you didn't tells me everything I need to know about your answer. He led me through hallways lined with art that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime, into a study that smelled of leather and old books. A fire crackled in the hearth despite the warm morning, and coffee waited on a side table prepared exactly how I liked it, cream and no sugar. "How did you know?" I asked, staring at the cup. "I told you. I make it my business to know things." He poured his own coffee, black and bitter. "Sit." I chose a leather chair near the fire, and he settled onto the edge of his desk, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "I need to understand what this job actually means," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. "You said you want me to be your analyst. What does that entail?" "Exactly what you did last night. You'll review financial data, identify irregularities, trace money through systems most people don't even know exist. You'll attend meetings, assess potential business partners, tell me who's lying and who's trustworthy." "So I'd be helping you with legitimate business?" His smile was sharp. "I run several legitimate businesses, yes. Import-export, real estate development, private security. All legal, all profitable. And the illegitimate ones? Those," he said softly, "you'll learn about gradually. If you prove yourself trustworthy, if you can handle the reality of what I am, a criminal. A king in a kingdom that operates by different rules than the ones you're used to." He set down his coffee and moved closer, his hand coming to rest on the arm of my chair, caging me in. "I won't lie to you, Sloane. I've killed people. I've destroyed lives. I've done things that would make you run screaming if I told you the details. But I've also protected thousands of people who work for me, provided for families, maintained order, in places where law enforcement has failed. My world isn't black and white. It's every shade of gray you can imagine. And you want me to become part of that world? I want you to be the one person who tells me the truth. Everyone around me wants something: power, money, protection. They lie because they're afraid or greedy or ambitious. But you..." His fingers brushed my jaw, the same gesture from last night, gentle and possessive. "You told me about Mikhail's betrayal when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. That kind of honesty is more valuable to me than all the soldiers and guns in my arsenal." "What happens to Mikhail?" I whispered. Dante's expression went cold. "That's not your concern. It is, if I'm going to work for you, I need to know what my information leads to." He studied me for a long moment, something like respect flickering in his eyes. "Fair enough. Mikhail will be dealt with, permanently. He stole from me, which means he stole from everyone who depends on me for their livelihood. That kind of betrayal has only one consequence in my world: death. Yes, no apology, no justification, just fact." My stomach twisted. "I don't want that on my conscience. It's not on your conscience. It's on mine. And I lost count of the souls weighing on my conscience years ago." He straightened, putting distance between us. "But I'll make you a promise, Sloane. The work you do for me will be financial analysis, nothing more. You won't be asked to pull triggers or make bodies disappear. You'll give me information, and I'll decide what to do with it. If that's a line you can live with, we can move forward." I looked into the fire, watching the flames dance and consume the wood, transforming it into ash and heat. "I need guarantees," I said finally. "I need to know that if I do this, I'm protected. That if something goes wrong, I won't just be collateral damage. You'll have my protection. Anyone who touches you answers to me." His voice carried absolute certainty. "You'll live here, at the estate, where my security can keep you safe." "Live here? I have an apartment, a life. That life ended the moment you walked up to me at that gala. Your apartment is a liability now. Mikhail has connections, and once he realizes I know about his betrayal, he'll figure out how I found out. You're a target whether you like it or not. Here, you're safe." The reality of what I was agreeing to hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just a job. This was complete immersion into Dante's world, his life, his darkness. "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He knelt in front of my chair, bringing himself to eye level, his hands resting on my knees. The intimacy of the gesture stole my breath. "Yes, you can, because you're stronger than you think, and braver than you know. You walked into a lion's den last night armed with nothing but truth and conviction. That takes courage most trained soldiers don't have." His thumb traced small circles on my knee, sending electricity through my body. "I'm offering you a chance to use your gifts for something bigger than spreadsheets and quarterly reports. To matter. To be seen. Isn't that what you've wanted your whole life? To stop being invisible?" How did he know? How could he see so clearly into the empty places inside me? "What if I fail you?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I don't think you will. He stood, offering his hand. So what's it going to be, Sloane Mercer? Safety and invisibility? Or danger and purpose? I stared at his outstretched hand, scarred, powerful, deadly. Then I placed my hand in his. I'll do it. But I have conditions. His smile was triumphant. Name them. I want complete access to all financial records. I can't do my job if you hide things from me. And I need to know that you'll actually listen when I find problems. I won't be a token analyst, you. Keep around for show. Agreed. What else? If I want out, if this becomes too much, you let me walk away. His expression darkened. That's the one thing I can't promise. You'll know too much, be too deeply embedded. The only way out of my world is death, Sloane. Mine or yours. That's the reality you're signing up for. The fire crackled in the silence. I should have been terrified. Should have pulled my hand away and run for the door. Instead, I tightened my grip. Then I guess I'd better not fail. Something blazed in his eyes, possession, approval, desire. Victor will collect your things from your apartment today. I'll have a suite prepared for you on the east wing. We start work immediately. What about Mikhail? He's being taken care of as we speak. Dante checked his watch with casual precision. In fact, the meeting should be concluding right about now. As if on cue, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression shifted into something cold and satisfied. It's done. 2 words. A man's life ended, reduced to a text message confirmation. I felt suddenly dizzy, the reality of what I'd agreed to crashing over me. Dante's hand cupped my face, forcing me to look at him. This is who I am, Sloane. This is the world you just chose. If you're going to survive here, you need to accept it. Can you do that? I thought of my empty apartment, my predictable life, the years of being overlooked and underestimated. I thought of the way Dante looked at me like I was the only person in the room who mattered. Yes, I whispered. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and uncertainty, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. The suite Dante had prepared for me was larger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the estate's gardens. A king-sized bed dominated one wall with linens that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and the bathroom was all marble and gold fixtures that belonged in a luxury hotel. My belongings, what little Victor had collected, looked pathetic, scattered across the dresser. Everything you need is here, Dante said from the doorway, watching me take it all in. If something's missing, tell me. I'll have it arranged. This is too much. This is the guest suite. My room is twice this size. He said it without arrogance, just stating fact. You're under my protection now, Sloane. That comes with certain privileges. And certain obligations? His smile was sharp. Smart girl. Yes. Tonight, you'll join me for dinner. I'm hosting several business associates. You'll observe, listen, tell me afterward what you notice. Consider it your first real assignment. I thought I was hired to analyze financial data, not play hostess at dinner parties. You were hired to find patterns and read people. Money is just one language liars speak. Body language, tone, word choice, those reveal just as much, sometimes more. He checked his watch. Dinner is at 8. Dress accordingly. There's a wardrobe. In the closet. I took the liberty of having clothes prepared in your size. You had clothes prepared? How did you even know my size? I know everything about you. Remember? He turned to leave, then paused at the door. And Sloane? Tonight you'll meet some dangerous people. Stay close to me. Don't speak unless spoken to directly. And if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. Understood? The protective edge in his voice sent warmth through my chest. Understood. When he left, I opened the closet and found it filled with designer dresses, shoes, jewelry, a fortune in clothing, all perfectly my size. I chose a deep emerald dress that was elegant without being ostentatious, paired it with simple heels and minimal jewelry. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked sophisticated, confident, dangerous, like I belonged in Dante's world. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a thrill down my spine. At 7:45, I made my way downstairs, following the sound of voices to a formal dining room that looked like it belonged in a European palace. Crystal chandeliers, a table that could seat 20, wine that probably cost more per bottle than I used to make in a week. Dante stood near the windows, deep in conversation with 3 men. He looked devastating in a tailored black suit, his hair pushed back, every inch the powerful kingpin. When he saw me, the conversation stopped mid-sentence. "Gentlemen," he said, his eyes never leaving mine. "This is Sloane Mercer, my new financial consultant." "Sloane, this is Alexei Romanov, head of our Eastern European shipping operations. Marcus Chen, who handles our West Coast distribution. And Father Dominic, who advises on certain charitable endeavors. A priest." Dante had a priest at his dinner table. I shook hands with each man, noting everything. Alexei's crushing grip and calculating stare, Marcus's polite distance and careful neutrality, Father Dominic's warm smile, that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Financial consultant," Alexei repeated, his accent thick. "How very corporate. Dante, I didn't realize we needed consultants to count our money. Everyone can benefit from a fresh perspective," Dante replied smoothly, his hand settling on the small of my back, possessive. "Protective. Sloane has already proven her value. She identified a rather significant leak in our organization." The temperature in the room shifted. "A leak?" Marcus's expression sharpened. "What kind of leak?" "The kind that's been permanently sealed." Dante guided me to my seat beside him at the head of the table. "Let's eat, shall we? Business can wait until after dinner." The meal was exquisite. Course after course of food I couldn't taste. My attention focused on the undercurrents of conversation flowing around me. Alexei dominated the discussion, loud and brash, drinking heavily. Marcus was quieter, more observant, his questions pointed and precise. Father Dominic blessed the food and spoke about community outreach programs. But I noticed how the others deferred to him, how even Alexei moderated his language in the priest's presence. Power didn't always wear a crown. Sometimes it wore a collar. Dante participated minimally, but I felt his attention on me, constantly watching, assessing, making sure I was all right. After dessert, the men moved to Dante's study for cigars and whiskey. I started to excuse myself, but Dante's hand on my wrist stopped me. "You're coming with me. I want your observations." In the study, the atmosphere grew heavier. Alexei sprawled in a chair. Marcus stood near the fireplace, and Father Dominic accepted a whiskey with practiced ease. "So," Alexei said, staring at me with undisguised suspicion, "this is the analyst who discovered Mikhail's betrayal. Tell me, Miss Mercer, how does a financial consultant know so much about our operations?" "I don't know anything about your operations," I replied carefully. "I know patterns in data. Numbers don't lie, even when people do. Numbers can be manipulated." "True. That's why I look for inconsistencies across multiple data points. It's harder to maintain a lie when you have to tell it in different languages simultaneously." Marcus laughed softly. "She's sharp. I can see why you hired her, Dante." "The question," Father Dominic said quietly, "is whether we can trust her. No offense, Miss Mercer, but you're new to this family. Trust must be earned." "Then give me the opportunity to earn it," I said, meeting his gaze directly. "Bold," Alexei muttered. "I like that, but boldness without loyalty is dangerous." "She's loyal to me," Dante said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "That should be sufficient." "With all due respect," Marcus interjected, "Mikhail was loyal to you too, until he wasn't." The tension ratcheted up another notch. Dante stood, moving to the window, his back to the room. "Mikhail's betrayal cost us $2 million and nearly compromised our Eastern European roots. His loyalty was a performance. Sloane's warning potentially saved us from far greater losses. That buys her credibility." "For now," Alexei said, "but I suggest we test that credibility. Give her access to something important. See if she keeps her mouth shut." "What did you have in mind?" Dante asked, turning back to face them. Alexei smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. "The Corsini deal. Let her review the contracts, the financials. If she's as good as you claim, she'll find the leverage we need. If she talks to anyone outside this room, we'll know where her loyalties lie." I had no idea what the Corsini deal was, but the weight of it hung in the air like a guillotine. Dante looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. "Can you handle this?" I nodded once. "Done," he said. "Sloane will review the Corsini contracts tomorrow. We'll discuss her findings in 1 week." The meeting concluded shortly after, the men filing out with handshakes and veiled warnings. When the last one left, Dante poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed me one. "You did well tonight," he said. "I barely said anything." "Exactly. You listened. Observed. Didn't try to prove yourself or show off. That takes discipline. He clinked his glass against mine. But now you're committed. The Corsini deal is real, and it's dangerous. If you find what Alexei thinks you'll find, people will die because of it. What am I looking for? Proof that Luca Corsini is embezzling from his own family's organization. If we can prove it, we can force him to partner with us on terms favorable to our operations. If we can't, we risk a war with one of the most powerful families in the city. I drained the whiskey, letting it burn away the fear. No pressure then. Dante laughed, a real laugh this time, warm and unexpected. I told you, working for me isn't for the faint of heart. He stepped closer, and suddenly the study felt very small, the air charged with something electric. Why did you really hire me? I whispered. You could have hired any financial analyst, someone with experience in your world. Because you're fearless enough to tell me the truth, and innocent enough to still believe truth matters. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. Because when you look at me, I see both fear and fascination. Because you haven't run yet, even though you should have. Maybe I'm just stupid. No, you're the smartest person I've met in years. Which makes this, his thumb traced my lower lip, extremely dangerous. This, my voice came out breathless. The fact that I want you. That every time you're in the same room, I can't think about anything else. That watching other men look at you tonight made me want to put bullets in their skulls. His jaw tightened. You're supposed to be my analyst, Sloan. My employee. Getting involved with you is reckless and stupid and could get us both killed. Then why are you still touching me? Because, apparently I'm reckless and stupid when it comes to you. He kissed me. Not gently, not tentatively acclaiming, consuming kiss that stole my breath and my sense and every rational thought I'd ever had. His hand fisted in my hair, angling my head back as he deepened the kiss, and I melted into him like I'd been made for this moment. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Go to your room, he said roughly. Now, before I do something we'll both regret. What if I don't want to go? Sloan, my name was a warning and a plea. I'm trying to do the right thing here. Don't make this harder than it already is. I stepped back, my lips still tingling, my body aching with want. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow you start work on the Corsini deal. Tomorrow we pretend this didn't happen. Tomorrow, we remember all the reasons this can't work. And tonight? His smile was pained. Tonight I remind myself that some things are worth wanting even if you can never have them. I left before I could do something stupid like kiss him again. But as I climbed the stairs to my suite, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Dante Volkov was the most dangerous thing that had ever happened to me. And I was already too far gone to care. I spent 3 days buried in the Corsini files. Dante had given me access to everything: contracts, financial statements, bank transfers, Shell Corporation records spanning 5 years. The data was meticulous, almost too clean, which immediately raised red flags. In my experience, truly legitimate businesses had messy records. When everything looked perfect, someone was hiding something. The Corsini family ran luxury hotels across the East Coast, with secondary investments in restaurants, nightclubs, and private security. On paper, they were successful entrepreneurs. Beneath the surface, I found the same patterns I'd seen in Mikhail's betrayal. Small, consistent discrepancies that added up to something massive. Luca Corsini, heir to the family empire, was skimming approximately $500,000 per quarter through a series of fraudulent vendor contracts. The vendors existed but were providing services at inflated rates, with the excess being funneled into offshore accounts tied to Luca's mistress and his cocaine habit. The evidence was damning, and exactly what Dante needed. I compiled my findings into a comprehensive report, triple-checking every connection, every transaction, every smoking gun. By the time I finished, my eyes burned from staring at screens, and my shoulders ached from tension. It was past midnight when I finally emerged from the small office Dante had set up for me. The estate was dark and quiet, most of the staff gone for the night. I should have gone to bed, but I was too wired, too restless. I found myself walking toward Dante's study, drawn by the light spilling beneath the door. I knocked softly. "Come in." He sat at his desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Papers surrounded him, and a half-empty bottle of whiskey sat within reach. He looked exhausted and beautiful and dangerously alone. "You should be sleeping," he said without looking up. So should you. I don't sleep much these days. He finally met my gaze, and something flickered in his expression. You finished the report? I crossed the room, setting the folder on his desk. Everything you need is there. Luca Corsini is stealing from his family and leaving a trail that even a moderately competent auditor could follow. The question is whether his father knows and is allowing it, or whether Luca's been hiding it. Dante opened the folder, scanning my work with the focused intensity he brought to everything. After several minutes, he leaned back, something like admiration crossing his face. This is exceptional work, Sloane. Detailed, thorough, irrefutable. What will you do with it? Exactly what Alexei suggested. Use it as leverage. Luca's addiction makes him vulnerable. If we approach this correctly, we can force a partnership that gives us access to Corsini's hotel network for our distribution routes without starting a war. And if his father refuses, then we go to war. He said it simply, like he was discussing the weather. But I'd prefer not to. The Corsini family has deep political connections. A war with them would be expensive and bloody. I moved to the window, staring out at the moonlit gardens. Does it ever bother you? Does what bother me? The violence? The manipulation? The way you move people around like chess pieces? Silence. Then the sound of his chair scraping back, footsteps approaching. He stopped behind me, close enough that I could feel his heat. Every day. I turned, surprised by the raw honesty in his voice. I wasn't always this, he continued quietly. When I was young, I thought I could run my father's empire differently, be cleaner, better, more ethical. But the world doesn't reward ethics, Sloane. It rewards strength and ruthlessness, and the willingness to do what others won't. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, so I became what I needed to be to survive. And now I'm so deep in blood and compromise that there's no way back. Do you want a way back? I don't know anymore. This is all I know. All I'm good at. That's not true. You're brilliant. You could do anything. Could I? His laugh was bitter. I've killed people, Sloane. Ordered executions. Destroyed families. There's no redemption for someone like me. No quiet retirement to the suburbs with a picket fence and a normal life. Then why do you keep going? Because the alternative is death or prison. Because hundreds of people depend on me for their livelihoods. Because if I step away, someone worse takes my place. At least I have rules. At least I try to minimize collateral damage. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. And now, because you're here, because for the first time in years, I have someone worth protecting. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dante, I know, we can't do this. You work for me. Getting involved is dangerous and stupid and violates every rule I've ever set for myself. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against mine. But God help me. I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting you. Can't stop imagining what it would be like if we were different people in a different world. We're not different people, I whispered. We're exactly who we are. And maybe that's enough. It's not enough. It's nowhere near enough. You deserve someone who can give you a normal life. Someone who isn't haunted by ghosts and drowning in violence. I don't want normal. Normal is what I spent my whole life being. Invisible, overlooked, safe, and utterly alone. I grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer. You make me feel alive, Dante. Terrified and exhilarated, and more myself than I've ever been. Don't tell me I deserve better when you're exactly what I want. He kissed me then, desperate and consuming, his hands tangling in my hair as he backed me against the window. The glass was cold against my back, but his body was fire, burning away every reservation, every fear. This is a mistake, he breathed against my lips. Then make it with me. He groaned, a sound of surrender, and lifted me into his arms. I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me to the desk, sweeping papers aside to set me down on the smooth surface. His hands roamed my body with possessive hunger, and I arched into his touch, desperate for more. Tell me to stop, he commanded, his voice rough. Tell me this is insane and we should walk away. I don't want you to stop, Sloane. I want this. I want you. Every broken, dangerous, impossible part of you. Something broke in his expression, control shattering like glass. His mouth found my neck, my collarbone, the curve of my shoulder, each kiss a brand claiming me as his. His hands were everywhere, learning my body with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. If we do this, he said, pulling back just enough to look into my eyes. There's no going back. You'll be mine, and I'll be yours, and nothing about this will be safe or easy or simple. Can you handle that? Yes. Say it again. Say you understand what you're agreeing to. I understand. I pulled his face to mine, kissing him with all the certainty I felt. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. He made a sound low in his throat, possession and relief, and desperate need, and claimed my mouth again. We didn't make it to a bedroom. We came together right there in his study, on his desk surrounded by the evidence of his empire, fierce and urgent and perfect. He was reverent and rough, tender and demanding, giving me everything I'd never known I needed. Afterward, we lay tangled together on the leather sofa, my head on his chest, his fingers, tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. This changes everything, he said quietly. I know. People will use you to get to me. Enemies will see you as a weakness to exploit. Then we'll deal with it together. He tightened his arms around me. I'll protect you with everything I have, Sloane. But my world is my world now, too. I tilted my head to look at him. We're in this together, Dante. All of it, the danger, the darkness, whatever comes next. He kissed my forehead, something vulnerable and beautiful in his expression. How did I get so lucky? Lucky? You're a crime lord with enemies on every side and blood on your hands. And somehow, you still look at me like I'm worth something. You are worth something. You're worth everything. We stayed like that for hours, talking in whispers, learning each other, pretending the rest of the world didn't exist. But reality came crashing back at dawn when Victor knocked on the study door. Mr. Volkov, we have a situation. Dante was on his feet instantly, all softness vanishing behind the mask of control. What kind of situation? Luca Corsini. He's dead. Overdose, they're saying, but the circumstances are suspicious. Ice flooded my veins. When? 2 hours ago. His body was found in one of his hotel rooms. Dante's jaw tightened. He looked at me, then at the report still sitting on his desk. This wasn't a coincidence, I said, fear crawling up my spine. Someone knew we were investigating him, which means someone in my organization is talking. Dante's voice went cold. Lethal. Victor, lock down the estate. No one comes or goes without my explicit approval. And find out who the hell leaked information about the Corsini investigation. Yes, sir. When Victor left, Dante turned to me, his expression grave. Get dressed. We're about to have a very dangerous conversation with some very dangerous people. What do you mean? Luca Corsini's death looks suspicious enough that his father will demand answers. And, if he thinks I had anything to do with it, war. I finished. War. He pulled me close, kissing me hard and fast. Stay close to me today, Sloane. Trust no one except Victor. And if things go sideways, you run. You get out of here and you don't look back. Understand? I'm not leaving you. That's not a request. If this turns into a bloodbath, I need to know you're safe. Promise me. I wanted to argue, to tell him I wouldn't abandon him. But the steel in his eyes told me this wasn't negotiable. I promise. Good. He released me, the tender lover vanishing behind the ruthless kingpin. Now let's find out who's trying to start a war. The Corsini family arrived at noon. I watched from Dante's study window as 3 black SUVs rolled through the estate gates, their arrival ominous and deliberate. Dante stood beside me, perfectly composed in a dark suit, but I could feel the tension radiating from him like heat. That's Salvatore Corsini, he said, nodding toward the silver-haired man emerging from the center vehicle. Luca's father, one of the most powerful men in this city, and currently the most dangerous. His hand found mine, squeezing briefly. Remember what I told you. Stay quiet unless spoken to. Let me handle this. Victor appeared in the doorway. They're demanding to meet in the main hall. All of them. How many? 8. Salvatore, his 2 brothers, his consigliere, and 4 soldiers. Victor's expression was grim. They're armed. Of course they are. Dante released my hand, his demeanor shifting into something cold and regal. Let's not keep them waiting. The main hall was a vast space designed to intimidate high ceilings, marble floors, and a massive fireplace that could have fit a car. Dante's men lined the walls, hands near their weapons, faces impassive. The Corsini delegation stood in the center, fury and grief rolling off them in waves. Salvatore Corsini was in his 60s, distinguished and dangerous, with eyes that could cut glass. When he saw Dante, his face twisted with barely controlled rage. "Volkov, how generous of you to receive us in your palace." His voice dripped venom. "While my son lies cold in the morgue. Salvatore, my deepest condolences for your loss." Dante's tone was measured, respectful. "Luca's death is a tragedy." "A tragedy? Is that what you call murder?" The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "Murder?" Dante's expression didn't change. "The reports I heard indicated an overdose. Luca's habits were well known." "Don't you dare." Salvatore stepped forward, his brothers flanking him like wolves. "My son had his demons, yes, but he was clean for 3 months. 3 months of sobriety, of getting his life back, and then suddenly he's found dead with enough cocaine in his system to kill an elephant? You expect me to believe that's a coincidence? I expect you to believe the evidence. I had nothing to do with liar." One of Salvatore's brothers shouted. "We know you were investigating Luca. We know you had files on his business dealings. What did you find, Volkov? What secret was worth killing my nephew over?" My blood turned to ice. Someone had told them about the investigation. Someone close to Dante had betrayed him. Dante's expression went deadly calm. "I don't know where you're getting your information, but it's incorrect. I had no reason to harm Luca. We were business associates, nothing more." "Business associates?" Salvatore laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call it when you dig through someone's finances looking for dirt? When you compile evidence of their indiscretions to use as blackmail?" I felt eyes turning toward me. Salvatore's consigliere, a thin man with a predator's gaze, was staring directly at me. "Who is this?" he asked, pointing. "I don't recognize her from your usual entourage, Volkov. My financial consultant. She has nothing to do with financial consultant?" The man's smile was a razor. "How convenient. I hear you. Recently hired someone to review your operations. Someone skilled at finding irregularities." Dante shifted, placing himself subtly between me and the Corsini delegation. "I hire many consultants. It means nothing. It means everything." Salvatore's voice went quiet, which made it infinitely more dangerous. "You had my son investigated. You found something you could use against him. And when he refused to cooperate, you had him killed and made it look like an overdose. That's not what happened. Then explain to me why my sources tell me you were planning to meet with Luca this week. Explain why your analyst," he jabbed a finger toward me, "spent the last 3 days buried in Luca's financial records. Explain why my son is dead less than 24 hours after you finished your investigation." The accusation hit like a physical blow. Someone had given the Corsinis incredibly detailed information. Someone who knew about my work, my timeline, Dante's plans. Someone in this room was a traitor. "I will explain nothing based on rumors and paranoia," Dante said coldly. "If you have proof I was involved in Luca's death, present it. Otherwise you're making dangerous accusations without foundation." "Proof?" Salvatore's laugh was hollow. "My proof is lying in the morgue, Volkov. My proof is the pattern of your behavior investigating people, finding their weaknesses, exploiting or eliminating them. You've done it before. Why should I believe you didn't do it to my son? Because I give you my word." "Your word means nothing to me." Salvatore stepped closer, and immediately both delegations tensed, hands moving to weapons. "But I'll tell you what does mean something. Justice, compensation, blood for blood. Are you declaring war?" Dante's voice was soft, lethal. "I'm declaring that someone will pay for my son's death. If it was you, I'll burn your empire to the ground. If it was someone else, you'll help me find them or face the same consequences. You have 48 hours to prove your innocence, Volkov. After that, we settle this the old way, and if I refuse to play your games, then the blood starts flowing. Your operations, your people, your precious estate, all of it becomes a target. I have the resources and the rage to make you wish you'd never been born." Salvatore's eyes were dead, empty of everything but grief and fury. 48 hours. Prove you didn't kill my son, or prepare for war. The Corsini delegation turned as one, marching toward the exit with military precision. As they reached the door, Salvatore paused, looking back. "And Volkov? If I find out that girl had anything to do with Luca's death, I'll make her suffer in ways you can't imagine. No one touches my family without consequences." Then they were gone, leaving behind a silence so thick it was suffocating. Dante stood perfectly still for a long moment, his jaw tight, fury radiating from every line of his body. Lock it down, he said quietly. No one leaves the estate. No phone calls, no messages, nothing. And bring me everyone who knew about the Corsini investigation. Everyone. Victor nodded and disappeared. When we were alone, Dante turned to me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something close to fear in his eyes. This is worse than I thought. Someone leaked everything, I said, my voice shaking. The timeline, my role, the investigation. Someone wanted Salvatore to think you killed Luca, which means someone is trying to start a war between our families. The question is why? He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. I'm calling in every favor I have. We need to find out who killed Luca and why before Salvatore makes good on his threat. You think someone in your organization did this? I think someone very close to me is playing a very dangerous game. He looked at me, his expression grave. And they've made you a target in the process. Salvatore's threat wasn't empty, Sloan. If he thinks you're involved, he'll come for you. Then we prove I'm not. We prove neither of us killed Luca. How? We don't have access to the body, the crime scene, or the toxicology reports. And even if we did, proving a negative is nearly impossible. I thought fast, my mind racing through possibilities. The leak. Whoever told the Corsinis about the investigation is our key. They knew too much, which means they're either very close to you or they have access to your systems. Find the leak, and we find who's really behind this. Dante stared at me, something like admiration flickering through the worry. You're right. Victor, Alexei, Marcus, Father Dominic, they all knew about the investigation. One of them talked, or one of them orchestrated the whole thing. Why would they want war with the Corsinis? I don't know yet, but someone benefits from this chaos. We need to figure out who. I grabbed his hand. We have 48 hours. Let's use them. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. I should have never involved you in this. Should have kept you away from the Corsini deal. If you hadn't involved me, you wouldn't have the evidence. And you wouldn't know there's a traitor in your organization. I'm exactly where I need to be. You're in the crosshairs of a Mafia war, Sloan. That's not where you need to be. I'm with you. That's where I need to be. I kissed him softly. We're in this together, remember? All of it. He held me like I was the only solid thing in his world. And maybe I was. I won't let them hurt you, he whispered. I'll burn this city down before I let Salvatore touch you. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But even as I said it, I knew we were on the edge of something catastrophic. Somewhere in Dante's inner circle, a traitor was pulling strings, and I had 48 hours to prove who before the city drowned in blood. Dante gathered his inner circle in the war room, a fortified space in the estate's basement that looked more like a military command center than an office. Monitors lined the walls, displaying security feeds from across the city. A massive table dominated the center, and around it sat the 4 men I'd met at dinner. Victor, Alexei, Marcus, and Father Dominic. I stood beside Dante, feeling their eyes on me, calculating, suspicious, hostile. One of you, Dante said without preamble, betrayed me to the Corsinis. Someone in this room told Salvatore about the investigation into Luca. Someone gave him detailed information about timelines, personnel, and findings. I want to know who, and I want to know why. Now, silence, heavy and dangerous. Alexei leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. You think one of us is a traitor? That's a serious accusation, Dante. Salvatore had information only people in this room could have known. Unless you're suggesting my security has been compromised? Maybe it has. Marcus's voice was calm, analytical. Have you checked for surveillance devices? Hacked. Communications? Your analyst, he nodded toward me, has been accessing sensitive systems. Maybe she's not as loyal as you think. Don't. Dante's voice cracked like a whip. Sloan found the Corsini leak. She's the reason we had leverage in the first place. She had nothing to gain from telling Salvatore. Except immunity, Father Dominic said quietly. Perhaps she made a deal. Give the Corsinis information in exchange for protection. It's not unheard of. I felt blood drain from my face. I would never... Let me handle this, Dante interrupted, his hand finding mine beneath the table, a brief squeeze of reassurance. Sloan has been under my protection and surveillance since she arrived. Victor has monitored all her communications. She's made no contact with the Corsinis or anyone outside this organization. Try again. Victor spoke for the first time, his voice like gravel. The leak came from someone with detailed operational knowledge. Not just about the investigation, but about Dante's patterns, his methods, his security protocols. That's not information a new analyst would have. So we're back to one of us, Marcus said, which means we need to look at motive. Who benefits from a war with the Corsinis? Anyone who wants to destabilize Dante's position, Alexei said. The Corsinis are powerful allies. Turning them into enemies weakens our eastern operations significantly. Or, I said, finding my voice, someone who wants to take over those eastern operations themselves. Everyone turned to stare at me. Dante's hand tightened on mine. A silent message. Careful. But I'd already started down this path. The Corsini hotels provide distribution routes for goods coming from Europe. If Dante goes to war with them, those routes become contested territory. Whoever controls them after the dust settles stands to gain considerably. And who do you think that would be? Alexei's voice was dangerous. I met his gaze directly. Someone with connections in Eastern Europe. Someone who already manages shipping operations. Someone who could step into the vacuum and claim they're protecting Dante's interests while actually building their own empire. Alexei's face went dark. Are you accusing me? I'm observing that you have the most to gain. He lunged across the table, but Victor was faster, restraining him with one arm. Calm down, Dante commanded. Sloane is doing exactly what I hired her to do, analyze patterns and motives. If you're innocent, you have nothing to fear from her questions. I've been loyal to you for 15 years, Alexei snarled. And you let this outsider accuse me of betrayal? I'm letting her do her job. If you want to prove your innocence, show us your communications from the past week. Phone records, emails, everything. That's an invasion of privacy. That's the price of staying in this room. Dante's voice went cold. Everyone submits to the same scrutiny. We clear this up now, or we tear ourselves apart while Salvatore watches and waits for us to implode. One by one, they produced their phones. Victor collected them, connecting each to a laptop and running scanning software. I watched their faces. Alexei's fury, Marcus's calculation, Father Dominic's serene neutrality. One of them was lying. But which? There, Victor said suddenly, turning his screen toward Dante. Encrypted message sent from Marcus's phone to an unknown number. 4 days ago, approximately 2 hours after Sloane finished the Corsini report, Marcus went very still. I don't know anything about that. The message was sent from your device. Then someone used my device without my knowledge. It's possible. The message was encrypted using your personal key, Victor interrupted. The one you change weekly for security purposes. No one else would have access. What did the message say? Dante asked quietly. Victor worked for a moment, breaking the encryption. Then his face went pale. It says, Volkov has evidence of Luca's theft. He plans to use it for leverage. Move against Luca now, before Dante can act. The room exploded into chaos. Marcus stood abruptly. That's fabricated. I never sent your encryption key, your phone, your message. Dante rose slowly, his expression lethal. You sold out Luca to his enemies, knowing it would look like I ordered the hit. You wanted the Corsinis to blame me. Why would I do that? Marcus's composure was cracking. What would I gain? War, I said, the pieces finally clicking together. If Dante and the Corsinis destroy each other, the power vacuum lets you step in. You've been building relationships with their rivals for months, haven't you? Positioning yourself as the reasonable alternative to Dante's aggression. Marcus's laugh was bitter. You think you're so smart, analyst. But you're missing the bigger picture. Then enlighten us, Dante said softly. The Corsinis are weak. Luca was bleeding them dry, and Salvatore is too blinded by family, loyalty to see it. They're vulnerable, ripe for takeover. But they'd never willingly partner with you, Dante. Your reputation is too brutal, too uncompromising. They need someone more diplomatic. So you orchestrated Luca's death, framed me for it, and planned to swoop in as the peacemaker? I planned to build something better than your blood-soaked empire, something sustainable. But you couldn't see past your own ego to recognize that your methods are outdated. My methods, Dante said quietly, kept you fed and protected for a decade. And this is how you repay that? Marcus pulled a gun so fast I barely saw it move. This is how I take what should have been mine years ago. Time seemed to slow. Dante shoved me behind him. Victor drew his weapon. Alexei lunged across the table. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. But it wasn't Marcus who fell. Father Dominic collapsed, blood blooming across his pristine white collar, his expression one of shock and pain. Marcus had shot the priest. What? Marcus stared at the gun in his hand, confusion replacing calculation. I wasn't aiming at... Drop the weapon, Victor commanded, his own gun trained on Marcus's head. Marcus's hand trembled. This wasn't the plan. The priest wasn't supposed to. Drop it now. The gun clattered to the floor. Dante knelt beside Father Dominic, pressing his hands to the wound. Get a doctor. Now. But I could see from the priest's ashen face, the blood pooling beneath him, that it was already too late. Father Dominic grabbed Dante's sleeve with weakening fingers. The Corsinis weren't the target. He wanted you to kill me, to complete the frame. What? Dante leaned closer. What are you saying? Marcus worked with Luca. They planned to blame you for everything. Make it look like you killed us both. Start a war that would destroy you. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. I found out last night. That's why he shot me. Not an accident. Stay with me, Dante commanded, but the priest's eyes were already glazing. Protect your analyst, Father Dominic whispered. She sees too clearly. Makes her dangerous, but valuable. Keep her safe. Then he was gone, his hand falling limply to the floor. The room was utterly silent, except for my ragged breathing and the ringing in my ears from the gunshot. Dante stood slowly, his hands covered in the priest's blood, and turned to Marcus. I'd never seen a human being look so terrifying. Victor, Dante said in a voice devoid of all emotion. Take Marcus to the basement. I'll deal with him personally. Dante, wait, Marcus began. You killed a priest, a man under my protection. A man who was trying to warn me about your betrayal. Dante's voice was barely above a whisper, which made it infinitely more frightening. There is no mercy for that. There is no forgiveness. There is only what you deserve. 2 of Victor's men appeared, dragging Marcus from the room, despite his protests and pleas. When they were gone, Dante looked at Alexei. Can I trust you? Alexei nodded slowly, his earlier anger replaced by shock. I swear on my life, I had nothing to do with this. Then help me clean up this mess. We need to get Father Dominic's body to his church, and we need to figure out how to present this to Salvatore in a way that doesn't start World War III. I'll handle it, Alexei said quietly. When we were finally alone, Dante pulled me into his arms, his body shaking with barely controlled rage and grief. I'm sorry you had to see that, he whispered into my hair. I'm just sorry you lost someone you trusted. Father Dominic was a good man, one of the few truly good people in my world, and Marcus killed him because he saw too much, knew too much. He pulled back, cupping my face. Just like you. I can handle danger. This isn't just danger anymore, Sloane. Marcus wanted me dead, wanted to frame me for murders and start a war, and now that Adolfli, he's failed, whoever else is involved in this scheme will come after the loose ends. Which means you. Then we face them together. No, I'm sending you away. Somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find you until this is resolved. Absolutely not. I'm not running. This isn't negotiable. His voice cracked. I just watched a priest die in front of me because he knew the truth. I will not watch you die too. I can't. Do you understand? I cannot survive losing you. The raw vulnerability in his voice stole my breath. Then don't lose me, I whispered. Trust me to be strong enough to stay. He kissed me desperately, and I tasted fear and blood and grief on his lips. Outside, thunder rumbled a storm approaching, and somewhere in the darkness our enemies were circling. But for now, we had each other. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. They came for us at dawn. I woke to the sound of gunfire, sharp cracks that shattered the early morning quiet like breaking glass. Dante was already moving, pulling on clothes with practiced efficiency, his face carved from stone. Stay here, he commanded, pressing a gun into my hands. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Victor or me. Understand? What's happening? The Corsinis. They're not waiting for the 48 hours. He kissed me hard and fast. I love you. Remember that. Then he was gone, and I was alone with the weight of a weapon I barely knew how to use, and 3 words that changed everything. I love you. More gunfire. Shouting. The sound of vehicles in the courtyard below. I moved to the window and immediately regretted it. The estate's grounds were swarming with armed men, at least 20, maybe more, moving with military precision toward the main house. Dante's security forces were returning fire from defensive positions, but they were outnumbered. This wasn't just an attack, this was an invasion. My phone buzzed. A text from Dante. If they breach the house, use the passage. Behind the bookcase in my study. Leads to tunnels. Victor will meet you. I grabbed clothes, shoved my feet into shoes, and did exactly what Dante had told me not to do. I left my room. The hallway was chaos. Staff members running for shelter, guards taking positions at windows and doorways, the acrid smell of gunpowder already thick in the air. I made it to Dante's study just as an explosion rocked the east wing, not close enough to cause immediate damage, but close enough to make my ears ring and my heart hammer. Through the study windows, I could see Dante in the courtyard, shouting orders, directing his men with the precision of a general in battle. He moved like violence incarnate, controlled, lethal, utterly in his element, and absolutely exposed. I saw the sniper before anyone else did, a glint of metal on the roofline across the courtyard, the subtle shift of a barrel finding its target. Finding Dante. I didn't think. I grabbed the nearest heavy object, a crystal decanter, and hurled it through the window with all my strength. The glass exploded outward in a shower of fragments, the sound enough to make Dante look up, to shift his position just as the sniper fired. The bullet that would have killed him instead hit the stone wall behind where he'd been standing. Our eyes met across the distance, his wide with shock and fury and something that might have been gratitude. Then more gunfire erupted, and he was moving again, shouting into his radio, directing his forces toward the sniper's position. "What the hell are you doing?" Victor appeared at my elbow, grabbing my arm. "You were supposed to stay in your room." "There was a sniper." "I know. Half the estate saw you throw that decanter like some kind of action hero." He dragged me toward the bookcase. "The boss is going to kill you himself if the Corsinis don't do it first. Come on, we're getting you out of here." He pressed a hidden switch, and the bookcase swung open to reveal a narrow passage descending into darkness. "What about Dante?" I demanded. "What about him? He's doing what he does best, fighting a war. You're doing what you're supposed to do, staying alive so he has something to fight for. Now move." We descended into tunnels that smelled of earth and age, lit by emergency lighting that cast everything in harsh relief. The sounds of battle grew muted, distant, like a nightmare happening to someone else. "Where do these lead?" I asked, my voice echoing off stone walls. "Exits scattered across the property. Some date back to Prohibition, when this estate was used for smuggling. Dante's father expanded them, added modern security features." Victor checked his phone, frowning. "We're heading for the north exit. There's a car waiting. And then what? I just run while Dante fights for his life?" "Yes, that's exactly what you do. Because if the Corsinis capture you, they'll use you to break him. And trust me, he'll do anything, give up anything to keep you safe, including surrendering his entire empire." Victor's expression softened slightly. "He loves you, Sloane. More than I've seen him love anything in 15 years. Don't waste that by getting yourself killed trying to be a hero." We emerged into a garage I didn't know existed, where a nondescript sedan waited with the engine running. Victor opened the passenger door, but I didn't get in. "I can help. I know Marcus was working with someone else. There's more to this conspiracy than we've uncovered. If I can find..." "No." Victor's voice was flat. "You can find it from a safe house while the boss handles the Corsinis. This isn't negotiable." But before either of us could move, my phone rang. "Unknown number." I answered without thinking. "Hello? Miss Mercer." Salvatore Corsini's voice was ice cold. "I'm going to give you one chance to save Dante Volkov's life. Are you listening?" Victor went very still, his hand moving to his weapon. "I'm listening," I said carefully. "Good. In 10 minutes, my men will breach Volkov's defenses and burn the estate to the ground. Everyone inside will die, Dante, his people, innocent staff who just happened to work for the wrong man. All of them. Unless you do exactly what I tell you. What do you want? Simple. Turn yourself over to me. Come out the front entrance with your hands visible and I'll call off the attack. Dante lives, his people live, and you and I have a conversation about who really killed my son." "Don't you dare," Victor began, but I held up a hand. "How do I know you'll keep your word?" I asked. "You don't. But you know what I'll do if you refuse. The question is whether Dante Volkov's life is worth the risk." I looked at Victor, saw the answer in his eyes. No, absolutely not. But I thought about Dante in that courtyard, leading his people, fighting a war that had started because I'd uncovered the truth about Luca. I thought about Father Dominic's blood on the floor, about Marcus's betrayal, about the sniper's bullet that had nearly ended everything. I thought about 3 words: I love you. I need 5 minutes to think, I said. You have 2. Then I start burning. Salvatore disconnected. Victor grabbed my shoulders. Sloane, listen to me very carefully. If you walk out there, you're dead. Salvatore isn't interested in conversation. He wants revenge, and you're the easiest target. And if I don't, everyone in that house dies. The boss has survived worse. He's got contingencies, backup plans, resources you can't even imagine. He'll get out of this. Maybe, but how many people will die while he does? I pulled free of Victor's grip. I'm the one who found the evidence. I'm the one Salvatore blames. Let me fix this. By sacrificing yourself? That's not fixing anything. That's just suicide. Or it's buying time for Dante to regroup, to find another way out of this. I pulled out my phone, typing quickly. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I love him too. And tell him to find who Marcus was really working with before this happens again. I sent the message to Dante and pocketed my phone before Victor could take it. Sloane, please. I'm not asking permission, Victor. I'm doing what needs to be done. I walked toward the stairs leading back up to the estate. 2 minutes. Get Dante to safety. That's all I'm asking. Victor stood frozen for a moment, torn between duty to Dante and... What? Respect? Understanding? Some sense that I was right, even if it cost everything? Finally, he nodded once. I'll give you 90 seconds. Then I'm telling the boss. And God help us both. I ran up the stairs, through the tunnels, back into the chaos of the house. The battle had moved closer, gunfire in the hallways now. The sound of doors being breached. I could smell smoke. Salvatore hadn't been bluffing. I made it to the front entrance just as my phone buzzed. A text from Dante. Don't you dare. I'm coming for you. But he was too late. I opened the door and stepped out. Into the morning light, hands raised, heart hammering so hard I thought it might explode. Corsini's men surrounded me instantly, guns trained, faces hard and merciless. And through them walked Salvatore himself, his expression unreadable. Brave or stupid? He asked. Both, I admitted. Call off the attack. I'm here. Let's talk. He studied me for a long moment, then spoke into a radio in rapid Italian. Around us, the gunfire began to slow, then stopped entirely. An eerie silence fell over the estate. You have courage, I'll give you that. Salvatore gestured, and his men grabbed my arms. Let's see if you have answers too. As they dragged me toward the waiting cars, I looked back once and saw Dante emerge from the house, Victor restraining him, his face a mask of fury and anguish and absolute devastation. Our eyes met across the distance. I mouthed 2 words. Trust me. Then I was shoved into a vehicle, and the estate and Dante disappeared from view. I'd just traded myself for the man I loved. Now I had to survive long enough to make it worth something. They took me to a warehouse by the docks, the kind of place where bodies disappeared and questions went unanswered. Salvatore's men shoved me into a chair under harsh fluorescent lights, zip-tied my wrists, and stepped back into the shadows. I was alone in a circle of light, surrounded by darkness and the smell of salt water and rust, waiting. I focused on breathing, on staying calm, on remembering that I'd chosen this, that every minute they spent on me was a minute Dante had to regroup, to plan, to survive. Footsteps echoed in the vast space. Salvatore emerged from the shadows, flanked by his brothers and several armed men. He looked older in the harsh light, the grief and rage carved deep into his face. Miss Mercer. He pulled up a chair and sat facing me, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. You've caused me considerable trouble in a very short time. I didn't kill your Provite, son. No, I don't think you did. But you uncovered the secrets that led to his death. That makes you part of the chain of causation. He pulled out a knife, testing the edge with his thumb. Tell me everything. Start with why Volkov hired you. So I did. I told him about the gala, about finding Mikhail's theft, about being pulled into Dante's world. I told him about the Corsini investigation, about finding Luca's embezzlement, about Marcus's betrayal and Father Dominic's death. I left nothing out. Every truth, every detail, every piece of evidence I'd found. When I finished, Salvatore was quiet for a long moment. You're telling me my son was stealing from me? From his own family? Yes. Approximately 500,000 per quarter, funneled through fraudulent vendor contracts to an offshore account. The evidence is irrefutable, and Volkov planned to use this information to force my cooperation. Yes, but he never got the chance. Marcus Chen leaked the investigation to your people and then orchestrated Luca's death to make it look like Dante had ordered it. Marcus wanted to start a war between you and Dante so he could step into the power vacuum. One of Salvatore's brothers spoke up, his accent thick. Why should we believe any of this? You work for Volkov. Of course you'd blame a dead man to protect your boss. Marcus isn't dead, I said. Dante has him in custody. You could verify everything I've told you directly. Salvatore's eyes narrowed. Volkov would never give up Marcus to me. He would, to save me, and to prove the truth. I met his gaze directly. Make the call. Ask Dante for Marcus in exchange for my release. See what he says. It was a gamble, a desperate, dangerous gamble, but it was the only card I had to play. Salvatore studied me for what felt like an eternity. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed. Volkov, I have your analyst. Yes, she's alive. For now, I'm calling with an offer. You give me Marcus Chen and all evidence of his betrayal. I give you the girl. We call it even, and walk away from this war before it starts. What do you mean you want proof she's unharmed? He held the phone toward me. Dante, I said, my voice cracking despite my best efforts to stay strong. Sloan. God, I thought. His voice was ragged, broken. Are you hurt? No. I'm okay. Salvatore just wants the truth. I'm going to kill you myself when I get you back for pulling that stunt. Despite everything. I almost smiled. I know, but first you have to give him Marcus. I'd give him my entire empire to get you back safely. Marcus is already being prepared for transport. Don't give him everything, Sloan. His voice went soft, intimate, like we were the only two people in the world. You're all that matters. The rest is just business. Just territory. Just money. You're everything. Do you understand? Everything. Tears burned my eyes. I love you too. Salvatore took the phone back. I want Marcus delivered to Pier 47 inches 1 hour. You bring him personally. No backup. No weapons. We'll make the exchange and discuss terms. Fine. Pier 47. 1 hour. Don't be late. He disconnected and looked at me with something that might have been respect. Either you're an incredible actress, or you really are just an analyst who stumbled into the wrong world at the wrong time. The second one, I admitted. I was just trying to stop someone from getting hurt. I didn't realize how complicated everything would become. Complications are what get people killed in our world. He sheathed the knife. But if what you've told me is true, if Marcus really did orchestrate my son's death to manipulate me and Volkov into war, then you've prevented considerable bloodshed. That counts for something. Does it count enough to let me go? That depends on whether Marcus confesses to what you've claimed. If he does, you walk free. If he doesn't, he shrugged. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The next hour crawled by an agonizing silence. They moved me to a different location, a shipping container that had been converted into a makeshift prison cell, complete with a cot and basic facilities. Salvatore's men stood guard outside, their conversation a low murmur in Italian that I couldn't understand. I sat on the cot and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Marcus could refuse to talk. Salvatore could decide my life wasn't worth the risk of trusting Dante. Someone could start shooting during the exchange, and I could end up caught in the crossfire. But I'd made my choice. I'd walked out of that estate to save Dante and his people. Whatever happened next, at least I'd done that. A phone rang outside. Urgent conversation in Italian. Then the container door opened, and Salvatore appeared. They're here. Time to see if your story holds up. They escorted me to Pier 47, where a single vehicle was parked under the harsh lights of the industrial waterfront. Dante stood beside it, alone as promised, looking like he'd aged a decade since I'd last seen him. When his eyes found mine, the relief and rage and love that flashed across his face nearly broke me. Victor and two other men dragged Marcus forward. He looked terrible, beaten, broken, barely able to walk. As promised, Dante said, his voice carefully neutral. Marcus Chen, along with recorded confessions, evidence of his communications with Luca Corsini, and documentation of his entire conspiracy. Salvatore gestured, and his men took Marcus, forcing him to his knees. Tell me, Salvatore commanded. Did you kill my son? Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed a broken, hollow sound. Yes, I killed him. Gave him pure cocaine laced with fentanyl. Made it look like an overdose. And then fed you just enough information to make you blame Volkov. It was perfect. You'd destroy each other, and I'd pick up the pieces. Why? The word was barely a whisper. Because I deserved more than being Dante's loyal dog. Because I was tired of watching lesser men prosper while I followed orders. Because I saw an opportunity, and I took it. Marcus looked up at Salvatore, defiant despite the blood running down his face. Your son was weak. A junkie and a thief. He was ruining your empire. I did you a favor. The gunshot echoed across the water. Salvatore lowered his weapon, Marcus's body crumpling to the ground. That, Salvatore said coldly, was for my son. Weak or not, he was mine to judge, not yours. He looked at me, then at Dante. The girl can go. We're even. But hear me, Volkov, this doesn't make us allies. It just means we're not enemies. For now. Understood, Dante said quietly. Salvatore gestured, and his men released me. I ran to Dante, and he caught me in his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. His face buried in my hair, his body shaking. Never again, he whispered fiercely. You never put yourself in danger like that again. Do you hear me? Never. I had to. I know why you did it. I understand. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to make that choice again. He pulled back, cupping my face. I love you. More than power. More than empire. More than my own life. You're everything, Sloane. Everything. He kissed me desperately, and I kissed him back, tasting tears mine or his, I couldn't tell. Around us, Salvatore's men were already loading Marcus's body into a vehicle. The Corsini patriarch stood watching us, his expression unreadable. Take her home, Volkov, he said finally. And next time you want to investigate my family, have the decency to ask permission first. Then he was gone, his convoy disappearing into the night. Dante pulled me toward his car, Victor already holding the door open. Is it over? I asked, as we drove away from the docks. The immediate crisis? Yes, but there will be fallout. Questions, suspicions, other families wondering if they can trust me after one of my own betrayed me. So spectacularly, he laced his fingers through mine. It's never really over in this world, Sloane. But we survived. That's what matters. What happens now? Now? He smiled, exhausted but real. Now we go home. We rebuild. We figure out how to exist in a world where everyone knows you're my weakness and my strength. And we stay together, no matter what comes next. I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling the adrenaline finally drain away, leaving only bone-deep exhaustion. Together, I agreed. No matter what. As the city lights blurred past the windows, I realized that I'd found something I'd been searching for my entire life without knowing it. A place where I belonged, where I was seen, valued, essential. It wasn't the safe, predictable life I'd once imagined. It was so much better. 3 months later, the city looked different. Or maybe I was the one who'd changed. I stood in Dante's study, our study now reviewing financial reports from the Eastern European operations. Salvatore and Dante had negotiated a tentative partnership, one built on mutual respect and the shared understanding that war benefited no one. The Corsini hotels now provided distribution routes in exchange for a percentage of profits and guaranteed protection. It wasn't friendship, but it was peace. For now. You're doing it again. Dante's voice came from the doorway, warm with amusement. Doing what? That thing where you get lost in spreadsheets and forget the world exists. He crossed to me, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. It's simultaneously adorable and concerning. I found a discrepancy in the Prague accounts. Not theft, just inefficiency. But it's costing us about $10,000 a month. And you'll fix it, because that's what you do. He pressed a kiss to my neck. But first, you're taking a break. Alexei just arrived for dinner, and he's brought someone he wants you to meet. Another potential alliance? Something like that. Dinner was in the less formal dining room, the one with the fireplace and comfortable chairs instead of the rigid formality of the main hall. Alexei sat beside a woman I didn't recognize, striking, sharp-eyed, with the bearing of someone who'd survived in dangerous places. Sloane, Alexei said, standing as we entered. This is Katya Volkov, Dante's cousin from Moscow. Katya, this is Sloane Mercer, the analyst I told you about. We shook hands, and I felt Katya assessing me with the same intensity Dante had that first night at the gala. So you're the woman who tamed the infamous Dante Volkov, she said, her accent musical. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't tame anyone. We just found each other. How very romantic. But her smile was genuine. Alexei tells me you identified Marcus's betrayal before it could destroy the organization. That takes considerable skill. And considerable courage, Dante added, his hand finding mine under the table. She walked into Salvatore Corsini's custody to save my life. I'm still not entirely forgiven her for that. Because you would have preferred I let you die? I challenged. I would have preferred you let me find another way. His grip tightened. But yes, I'm grateful. Furious, but grateful. Katya laughed. I like her, cousin. She doesn't let you intimidate her. The dinner conversation flowed easily, talk of business, family news from Moscow, the shifting politics of the Eastern European operations. Katya was sharp and funny, her observations cutting through pretense with surgical precision. I could see why Alexei had brought her into the conversation. She was someone worth knowing. As dessert arrived, Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. Problem? I asked quietly. Potential one. Victor just flagged unusual activity in one of our South American accounts. Nothing definitive yet. But you want me to look at it. I was already standing. I'll pull the records. Now. After dessert. The sooner we identify problems, the sooner we solve them. You taught me that. I kissed his cheek. I'll be in the office. As I left, I heard Katya's voice, amused. She really is perfect for you, cousin. Strong enough to stand beside you, smart enough to be invaluable, and brave enough to call you on your bullshit. I know, Dante replied, and the warmth in his voice made my chest ache. I know. In the office, I pulled up the South American accounts, scanning for the patterns that had become second nature, irregular transfers, suspicious timing, amounts that didn't align with documented services. There. A series of payments to a new vendor, initiated 3 weeks ago, each just under the threshold that would trigger automatic review. Smart, but not smart enough. I traced the vendor registration to a shell company in Panama, then through 2 more layers of corporate structure until I found the real owner. My blood ran cold. It was registered to someone, named Elena Sokolov, Mikhail's widow. I was still staring at the screen when Dante entered, Alexei and Katya behind him. What did you find? Dante asked, reading the tension in my shoulders. Mikhail's widow. She's been skimming funds through fraudulent vendor contracts, the exact same method Mikhail used. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but consistent. How much? About 75,000 so far. But the pattern suggests she's planning something bigger, testing our systems, seeing what she can get away with. Dante's jaw tightened. She's trying to finish what Mikhail started. Or she's trying to fund her own revenge, Katya suggested. Mikhail's betrayal cost her everything. Status, protection, financial security. She has every reason to want payback. What do you want to do? Alexei asked. Dante looked at me. What would you recommend? The question caught me off guard. Not because he was asking my opinion. He always did that now. But because he was asking in front of Alexei and Katya, acknowledging my role in his organization publicly and without qualification. Cut her off from the accounts immediately, I said, thinking it through. But don't confront her yet. Watch where the money goes, who she contacts, what she's planning. She might lead us to other threats we haven't identified. Risky, Alexei observed. If she realizes we're onto her, she could run or accelerate whatever she's planning. True, but if we move too quickly, we lose the opportunity to understand the full scope of her network. Better to know all our enemies than eliminate one and miss the others. Dante smiled, that dangerous, beautiful smile I'd come to love. Spoken like someone who's learned this business well. We'll do it your way. Victor will set up surveillance, and we'll monitor her movements until we understand her full plan. And then? Katya asked. Then we'll handle it. The way we always do. His tone left no room for doubt about what that meant. After Alexei and Katya left, Dante and I stood at the study windows, looking out over the estate grounds. The gardens were beautiful in the moonlight, peaceful and serene, a stark contrast to the violence and danger that always lurked beneath the surface. Are you happy? Dante asked quietly. Yes, which is insane, considering my life involves tracking embezzlers and avoiding Mafia wars. But yes, I'm happy. You don't miss your old life? The safety, the predictability? I miss not worrying about getting shot, occasionally. But the rest? No. That life was empty. This one, I turned to face him. This one matters. I matter. Every day I solve problems, prevent disasters, help protect people. That's worth the danger. He pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me like armor. I never imagined I'd find someone who understood this world and chose it anyway. Chose me anyway. I could say the same thing. You could have anyone, someone from a family you already trust, someone trained for this life, but you chose me. Because you're brilliant and brave and beautiful. Because you see who I really am and don't run. Because his voice dropped to a whisper. Because I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anything. I kissed him, slow and deep, pouring everything I felt into that connection. Outside, the city hummed with life and danger and possibility. Inside, we had each other. Move in with me, he said when we finally broke apart, not just staying in a guest suite. Move your things into my room. Share my space, my life, everything. Officially. I thought I already did that. I mean permanently, irrevocably. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours. Are you asking me to be your girlfriend, Dante Volkov? His smile was crooked, almost shy. I'm asking you to be my partner, in every sense of the word. My equal, my advisor, my confidant, my love, the queen to my king, in this dark kingdom we've built. Tears blurred my vision. Yes, to all of it, yes. He kissed me again, deeper this time, full of promise and passion, and forever. That night, I moved the last of my belongings into Dante's suite, our suite. I hung my clothes beside his, put my books on the shelves next to his collection, placed my toothbrush next to his in the bathroom. Small, domestic gestures that felt monumental. We made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other all over again now that there were no more walls between us. Afterward, I lay in his arms, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady, strong, alive. Tell me something, I murmured. Something you've never told anyone else. He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then, when my father died, I cried. Not at the funeral, not in front of anyone, but alone, in my room. I cried for 3 hours straight. Not because I loved him, he was a brutal man who taught me that love was weakness. But because I realized I'd never have the chance to prove I could be better than him. That I could build something that wasn't just blood and fear. His voice was raw, vulnerable in the darkness. And have you? I asked softly. Built something better? I don't know. I've tried to have rules, to protect innocence, to be more strategic than sadistic. But I've still done terrible things. Still have blood on my hands that will never wash clean. You've also protected hundreds of people, provided for families, maintained order in places where chaos would mean suffering. That has to count for something. Does it? Or am I just telling myself pretty lies to sleep at night? I propped myself up on one elbow, looking down at him in the moonlight streaming through the windows. You're not your father, Dante. You're ruthless when you need to be. Yes. But you're also capable of love, of loyalty, of change. You let me into your life even though it made you vulnerable. You negotiated peace with Salvatore instead of choosing war. You're trying to be better. That's what matters. He pulled me down for a kiss that tasted like gratitude and hope. What did I do to deserve you? You saw me when I was invisible. You gave me purpose when I felt lost. You loved me even though it was dangerous. I settled back against his chest. We deserve each other. Yes, he agreed, his arms tightening around me. We do. I fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat and the promise of tomorrow. 3 weeks later, the meeting with the Corsini family was scheduled for 8 p.m. at one of their hotels, neutral ground. As much as anything in our world could be neutral. I dressed carefully in a deep burgundy dress that was elegant but professional, paired with Dante's gift, a delicate gold necklace with a pendant shaped like a key. For the woman who unlocked my heart, he'd said when he gave it to me, somehow managing to be both romantic and slightly embarrassed by the sentiment. Now, as I fastened it around my neck, he appeared behind me in the mirror, devastating in a charcoal suit. You look like a queen, he murmured, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. I feel like I'm about to walk into a lion's den. You are, but you've done it before, and you'll do it again. Because you're fearless. He met my eyes in the mirror. Salvatore requested you specifically for this meeting. He wants your analysis of a potential partnership with a family out of Chicago. Says he trusts your judgment more than his own accountants. He does realize I work for you, right? That my loyalty is to your interests, not his? He knows. But he also knows you're honest, that you won't lie to make the numbers look better than they are. In this world, that kind of integrity is rarer than diamonds. He turned me to face him. But you don't have to do this if you're uncomfortable. I can send someone else. No. If Salvatore trusts me enough to ask, I should go. Besides, I smoothed his lapels. Someone needs to make sure you boys don't start a war over dessert. His laugh was warm and genuine. Fair point. The meeting was tense but productive. Salvatore presented the Chicago family's proposal, a joint venture in luxury real estate that would benefit all parties. I reviewed the financials, asked pointed questions, and ultimately gave my assessment. The numbers were solid, the partnership viable, but certain protections needed to be built into the contracts to prevent either side from exploiting loopholes. Both families accepted my recommendations. Afterward, as we prepared to leave, Salvatore pulled me aside. You could have told me the deal was perfect as is, he said quietly. Made yourself look good, avoided potential complications. But you pointed out the risks honestly, even though it meant more work for everyone. Why? Because a bad deal now means problems later. I'd rather have a complicated negotiation than a partnership that implodes in 6 months and gets people killed. He studied me with those sharp, assessing eyes. Luca would still be alive if he'd had someone like you advising him, someone who cared more about truth than telling him what he wanted to hear. The grief in his voice was palpable, still raw, despite the months that had passed. I'm sorry for your loss, I said quietly. Truly. No parent should have to bury their child. No, they shouldn't. He glanced at Dante, who was deep in conversation with one of Salvatore's brothers. Take care of him, Miss Mercer. Dante Volkov is a dangerous man, but he's also a good one, which is a rare combination in our world. Don't let him forget that. I won't. He nodded once, then returned to his people. In the car ride home, Dante held my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. Salvatore likes you, he observed. He tolerates me. There's a difference. No, he genuinely likes you. I can tell. He's already talking about bringing you in on other joint ventures, using you as a neutral third-party analyst for deals between families. Is that allowed? For me to work with other families? Under normal circumstances? No. But you're not normal circumstances. You're Switzerland neutral, trustworthy, valuable to everyone. He lifted my hand to his lips. It's actually brilliant strategic positioning. The more families that rely on your analysis, the less likely they are to move against me. You become protection without a single weapon. I'm not sure how I feel about being used as a human shield. Not a shield, a bridge, a way to build cooperation instead of conflict. His expression grew serious. This world has been at war with itself for generations, Sloane. Endless cycles of betrayal and revenge that destroy families and communities. But you're offering something different, a way to build trust based on truth instead of fear. That's revolutionary. I leaned my head on his shoulder, watching the city lights blur past. I never imagined my life would turn into this. Regrets? Not even one. When we finally arrived home, the estate was quiet. Most of the staff already retired for the evening. We walked through the halls hand in hand, comfortable in the silence that spoke of partnership and understanding. In our bedroom, Dante pulled me close, his hands framing my face with infinite tenderness. I have something for you, he said softly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped. This isn't what you think, he said quickly, seeing my expression. Not yet, anyway. I want to marry you, Sloane God. I want that more than anything. But I know you need time. Need to be sure this is the life you want permanently. So this? He opened the box to reveal a ring with a deep sapphire surrounded by diamonds. Is a promise. That I love you. That I'll wait as long as you need. That whenever you're ready, I'll be here, asking you to be mine forever. Tears streamed down my face as he slipped the ring onto my right hand. It's beautiful. It was my grandmother's. The only piece of jewelry my father didn't sell when he needed money for his empire. She was the only person in my family who showed me what real love looked like before she died. I want you to have it. I kissed him, pouring everything I felt into that connection, love and gratitude and absolute certainty. I don't need more time, I whispered against his lips. I'm already sure. I'm yours, Dante. Completely. Forever. His eyes widened. Are you saying? I'm saying yes. To marriage, to partnership, to building this life together. Yes, to all of it. The joy that blazed across his face was incandescent, transforming him from the dangerous kingpin into someone young and hopeful and alive with possibility. He lifted me into his arms, spinning me around, both of us laughing like children. You're sure? He demanded, setting me down but keeping me close. You're absolutely certain? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He kissed me desperately, then pulled back, already reaching for his phone. We're getting married, tomorrow, tonight, as soon as possible. Dante. I caught his hand, laughing. We can wait a few weeks. Plan something. Tell people. I don't want to wait. I want you to be my wife, officially and irrevocably, before anything else can go wrong. Nothing's going to go wrong. You don't know that. In this world, everything can change in a heartbeat. I want to marry you while we have the chance. The fear beneath his urgency made my heart ache. He'd lost so much, survived so much. The idea that he might lose me too clearly terrified him. Okay, I agreed softly. We'll do it soon. This month. Small ceremony. Just the people who matter most. Deal? Deal. He sealed it with a kiss that promised forever. We made love that night with the fierce tenderness of two people who'd found something precious and rare in the darkest places. Afterward, curled together in our bed, Dante's arms wrapped around me like he was afraid I might disappear. I felt utterly at peace. This wasn't the life I'd imagined. It was dangerous and complicated, and built on foundations of violence and power that would probably never be entirely clean. But it was real. It was mine. It was ours. And somewhere between the spreadsheets and the gunfire, the betrayals and the truths, I'd found exactly what I'd been searching for without knowing it. A place where I belonged, a purpose that mattered, and a love dark enough to match the shadows, strong enough to survive anything, and bright enough to light the way forward. I love you, Dante murmured, already half asleep. I love you too, I whispered back, and in the quiet darkness of our room, wrapped in each other's arms, we built our future one heartbeat, one promise, one dangerous, beautiful moment at a time.